Good morning, RTS fans. Welcome to the final day of DreamHack, and welcome to the Stormgate Showdown. Now, we're calling it a showdown because we've got 3 incredible players from around the world who have been practicing in Stormgate and who are ready to show you their stuff. But we've also got interviews from the developers and a very special interview to start things off. We got Tim Morton, CEO, co-founder, production director, and a generally cool guy and RTS fan. So, Tim, tell us what you're showing us here today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. We are showing off our first public show match of Stormgate, and we've got some really amazing players here today. We're still in beta, so bear with us, but just so excited.
Well, tell me a little bit about what you're planning to do with Stormgate in the upcoming summer. You guys are going early access.
Yeah, early access is a step along the journey to build a game that is as epic as the other games that we worked on in the past. And I think it's a very conscious choice for us to try to build Stormgate with input from the community instead of the way that games used to be built in the past, where a lot of development happens without that input, and then the game goes out and gets responded to. In this case, we've had closed alpha, we're in closed beta now, and then early access will be that next step on the journey.
And would you say your connection to the community at Frost Giant and with Stormgate is pretty exceptional? It's really shaping the game. You have so much experience from RTS, so much experience from former Blizzard employees, so many old StarCraft 2 fans, players, talent that are chiming in. Tell me a little bit about who's kind of shown up for you guys.
Yeah, I think it's worth calling out that this whole team at Frost Giant is just passionate to their core about real-time strategy, and to a great extent, it was being part of this community that made us want to build Stormgate. I think working at Blizzard, as several of us did, feeling so connected to StarCraft and people like yourself and Trevor, your husband, who is also just a tremendous contributor to the ideas behind what we're doing on the Esports side. It's just that sense of being part of a family that inspired us. So.
Well, there's a lot of people out there, it looks like, that are eager to join this family. Now, early access is going to become available pretty soon. Tell me a little bit about when we can get our hands on it.
Yeah, early access will be launching for Stormgate this summer, and we're working hard on the next phases of the beta. As we launch early access, that's going to include the core game modes for us, which are 1 versus 1 competitive that we're going to see here today. It also includes a cooperative mode where 3 players can team up and play against AI. And then also the story mode, the campaign that will support up to 3 players. So you can play it with your friends, but you can also play it solo. And telling a story that builds and describes the universe of Stormgate really comes across through that campaign. After that, we've got all kinds of game modes like 3v3 and the map editor and many other things that we're going to add, but we're going to start with that core this summer.
Well, with all the excitement for the different game modes, for what you're bringing to the table for the future of RTS, the community in general has responded very well. As I understand it, you had a Kickstarter start recently. How's that going?
We're so grateful for the support that we've gotten from the community, and we just passed $1.5 million from the Kickstarter. So thank you, everyone who has contributed.
And it's still open. We could get to 2 million, right?
Yeah, we hope that it'll keep going, and we're really trying to provide some great rewards for the community, like physical collector's edition that has that very same statue but smaller and painted in colors. And also access to our beta and a number of other content bundles that come with the Kickstarter. So yeah, just big thank you to the community for supporting us.
Well, Tim, it's been great to hear from you. Is there anything else you want to say to all the fans gathered, everybody watching at home that's excited for Stormgate?
No, enjoy the match today, and we have 3 fantastic players. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate your support.
Thank you so much, Tim Morton of Frost Giant. Excited to share the early access with you all. And of course, their booth is here on the floor. Next up, we've got Austin Huddleston, our lead server engineer. And he's here to get into the nitty-gritty of who's going to be able to play against who and what the core philosophy is behind all this. Austin, welcome. Give me a little bit of an introduction.
Yeah, I guess I'm Austin. I kind of got my start in programming, making Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 2 maps way back in the day. I worked on the StarCraft 2 team for a little bit, and I've been working on Stormgate for a little over 3 years now. So it's been an absolutely crazy journey, and to be here at DreamHack and see the game actually being played in like a show match setting and a demo, it's the energy. It's so humbling. It's amazing. Yeah, it's so cool.
Oh, they're excited for you. I'm excited for you. What an opportunity too to come in and bring all that expertise into building this game. You have an amazing philosophy to bring the world together to play RTS in a way that feels good. And you're laughing at me. This is a quote from you guys, but I vibe with this so hard. So tell me a little bit about what this means to you.
Yeah, so I guess for me that's mostly talking a little bit about the StarCraft matchmaker, or Stormgate matchmaker, sorry.
I know, the tournament leader is going to be behind me.
Yeah, my bad. But yeah, the Stormgate matchmaker is actually designed and implemented by Toxie and Flux from the Warcraft 3 Champions Community Ladder, which is, so huge shout out to those guys. The idea behind it is it's actually a global matchmaker, and sort of what that means is it's going to measure your ping to all of the different game servers that we've got peppered around the globe, and it's only going to it'll only consider matches for you with anybody who you share a common game server with that has acceptable ping. So it's sort of like reconciling that MMR and latency, and just trying to make the best matches possible. It's pretty cool. It's a little bit, yeah, it's cool. It's more than just, we're gonna segment you out by which game server you're closest to. It actually is gonna connect people from different regions and where it can, and yeah, it should be awesome.
Not only is that exciting for the fairness of the matchmaking that your system will be doing, but that's really exciting for what it implies for the community building across your game. There's not going to be these borders of you're on, the South Korea server, you're on the North American server. It's going to be a lot more mixing of styles, of cultures, of conversations, and a lot closer in MMR, as I understand the goal is.
Yeah. The hope is that by sort of unifying those regions a little bit, where possible, where it's not going to make the lag experience bad, we can sort of get a bigger player pool of potential people to match you with, which means we should be able to find matches faster and closer in MMR to your level. And yeah, I'm excited about it, just getting started. But yeah, it's in the game today, so it's been kind of awesome to see it start working its magic.
Well, and you guys are also implementing another feature that's going to make this matchmaking feel really good, even if your opponent is quite far away. Tell me a little bit about rollback. This is something, if you've been upstairs, you've seen the FGC guys playing fighting games completely transform their ability to play online in the fighting game community. You're bringing this to RTS now.
Yeah, totally. So I guess the first thing I want to say is that we got some really incredible engineers on the server team working on this rollback prototype. It's totally a prototype at this stage, very experimental. But our initial results have been kind of amazing. Promising, but we're still, it's something that we're going to keep working on until we can make sure that it's going to actually improve the experience for everybody, even on lower spec machines. But I guess sort of the idea behind rollback, it works a little different in Stormgate than in fighting games. We actually will allow the game to simulate a little bit past where the game server has told it, or simulate past in time where the game server has told it about. And what that does is if there's ever like any network jitter or packet loss, or for any reason that a packet gets delayed, we can actually just let the game keep running smoothly. We don't have to hitch the game and wait for that packet to come in, and we can just, when the packet eventually does arrive, if we get something that's an input from the past, the game is actually able to snap back to the time that input came in, simulate back forward to exactly where the player was before, so there's no like time distortion or anything like that. Basically all the player will see if they have that little hiccup is just the unit snapping to the right position. So far it's been promising, but yeah, still quite a bit of work to do there.
It's exciting. I do wonder a little bit if you can offer any insight. What was like the conversation? What was the idea moment that occurred to you guys to try and implement?
Well, I think it actually, a lot of the credit goes to our chief architect, James Anhalt. I think he's been really good about encouraging us to not close the door on being able to do some of these awesome features. Rollback is just one of them. I think we're really trying to focus on the foundation of the game right now. And yeah, I think rollback is just such a cool thing that it's easy to get people excited about it. And so, I mean, this is just one of the first things that we've been able to build out of our Snowplay tech.
Very cool. And you touched on this a little earlier. I do want to dive into it. From War 3 champions, you've got Toxie, you've got Flix in there. What are they doing for you? How are they bringing their experience to bear on this process?
Flux is actually working on the server team at Frost Giant part-time, and he's been absolutely amazing. And yeah, Toxie helped us design a similar algorithm. And yeah, it's been kind of awesome to get to engage with those guys. And yeah, the War 3 Champions Community Ladder is just such an incredible project to see as well. Like it's always incredible to see like the community be able to like do something amazing like that. So yeah, it's been like amazing, humbling to work with those guys.
It really sounds like the community is building the game that the community wants to play. I'm so excited for what you're all doing. Austin, thank you so much for all the experience that you're bringing to bear on this. We've been talking a lot about playing Stormgate. I think it's time that we get into our first game, so I'm going to throw it over to some pretty legendary faces. Tasteless, Artosis, how are you guys doing?
Oh, I could not be more excited. Welcome, everybody. Tasteless and Artosis here for the first ever Stormgate match. It's an exciting time to be an RTS fan.
Yeah, I really haven't been this excited in a very long time. I'm a little bit jittery almost, like the very first day that we ever cast at GSL, where it's like, oh my God, it's happening. We've been waiting for Stormgate for 3 years. We're in the closed beta, and finally we're going to have some great matches for everyone to watch.
It's going to be an interesting cast. We've been learning the game along with the pros who are going to be playing here today, but it's going to be a bit of an exploratory cast here. Taking a quick look at the maps, we have 4 total that we're going to be going through here. It's going to be 2 best-of-3s. We're going to start with TLO versus Mana, and then the winner of that will be going up against the legendary player Moon from Warcraft 3, the greatest Warcraft 3 player of all time.
Yeah, that's right. And you can see we have 4 different maps here. We will be starting on 1 map in each set, and then the loser will be choosing the following maps. As we get into those maps, we'll kind of explain them to you a little bit more and what makes them different from each other.
And when it comes to maps in RTS, this is really what makes the games, or the genre, I should say, so incredible, is each map requires such a different approach, a different play style. Anyways, guys, let's make some noise. We're ready to get into the first ever casted Stormgate show match here with TLO versus Mana.
All right, here we go. In the very top right here, playing the Infernals, we have none other than Liquid Mana.
And down in the bottom left, over here playing Vanguard, it is TLO.
So the first map that we're going to be in here is Secluded Grove, a pretty popular map right now in Stormgate. I think one of the main things that you're looking at for this map is the fact that the center, well, that is the Secluded Grove, right? It's surrounded by trees. We have a ton of resources in there, and it definitely could be a point of contention for the 2 players.
And so we immediately see that it's going to be Mana going with a fast expand here, expand build here, and the same is true for TLO. Now, you do start out with a scout with Vanguard. This is that small dog running around, so they'll get to confirm that this is going to be a macro game from both players. Nobody going for a rush or any kind of cheese. Instead, we're going to be trying to develop and go into mid-game and possibly late game.
Yeah, and what you see right here, that's the scout from TLO. That's a very fast unit that you start with. It's a pupper, it's really cute, and you use it to scout the map. Mana, in the meantime, he went for that Iron Vault early on, and that allowed him to go ahead and make a Brute and split that into a couple Fiends, which are super fast attacking units that don't last for a long time.
That's right. They turn into Fiends, which are basically like a really powerful Brutaling. So if you do opt to go for that, you can then take that scout out. And now we're seeing some great harass over here from Mana. We've got the Bobs, which are very similar to SCVs or Peasants here. Using that overcharge, that makes the Bobs a lot stronger for a temporary period of time. That's going to force that Fiend to back off and go from harassing into scouting into the main.
And really, he's done a very good job so far. You know, even killing a single Bob here is going to be very nice. Going to go over and continue to harass a little bit here. He has taken a lot of damage, so obviously that Fiend isn't going to last a lot longer. One thing about Fiends is if they are not on that Dark Shroud, that Infernals have, they do run out of health over time.
That's right. It looks like the fast expand is set up over here for Mana. We've got 2 more brutes made. Those are the units over there on the left that we were talking about. Those can be fractioned into 2, which make the 2 fiends that come out on the map. Obviously, the brute very strong, a lot slower. But for now, they're just going to be a little bit of moving out, cracking open this Therium mine over here so that we can get some Therium mine at that second base.
That's right. You know, this is the other resource, and it's really important to kind of balance your resources. I feel like that's one of the harder things about Stormgate right now that everyone's still working on. Like, where do we want our workers to go? You know, like, exactly how much do we want to mine between the Luminite and the Therium in the early game?
And so immediately we're going to have the first creep camp taken out over here for Mana. This is a vision camp, so once you've killed that creep like that, you do get a little bit of income as well. But this is going to give you vision for the time being, which is going to be a lot nicer to make sure that you can't get counterattacked or blindsided here from the center of the map. As we're going to see these brutes continue to grow out on the map and start to take out more creeps and scout.
In the meantime, we have a Lancer over here for TLO. You know, it's hard to really put that next to another unit, maybe like a Zealot or something, but a little bit stronger. And that is going to be a melee unit he's going to try to utilize defensively. But already 3 brutes coming in for some harassment. And look at that, a great surround by TLO. And of course, you can split those brutes out into those fiends if you do get in trouble.
So he does actually surround that first brute. We've got a Hedgehog out here. This is that small car you can see firing just in the back. Now, this reminds me a lot of the StarCraft 1 Vulture, but in some ways maybe even a little bit more powerful and just fighting the general units that you see coming here from Mana. And so he's able to kite that pretty effectively.
Yeah, it's a very, very fast unit. It has to load up missiles, so it shoots quickly at first and then slows down and has to reload. But you see right now, this is a problem. The mech bay taking a lot of damage there. He's got to make sure he doesn't lose that, but Mana takes it down.
And he decides to then go for damage and starts to bait off those bombs. Let's not forget that the overcharge was used up there. That's almost like a resource of its own. Once you can bait that out, then you know you're going to have a nicer attack later on. It looks like the Hedgehog is just barely repaired enough to survive that.
Really great repair, but does end up losing one as well. The remaining Fiend going to try to get out of there. But, you know, I feel like the big victory for Mana here was killing off that mech bay, which is where you make your Hedgehogs.
That's right. That's really going to stifle the development there for TLO. It does seem like a lot of the top players, at least the current meta right now, and again, this game is still it's fresh out of the oven, and we're still developing the meta, but a lot of players like to go for Hedgehogs and try to do map control, and sometimes even take a third base. So we see those 2 Hedgehogs out on the map now. TLO gets the confirm Mana has not taken a third in that location just yet. And he can start to try to take out workers that would be coming out here to try to develop an economy.
Yeah, that Imp was going somewhere probably to expand. He's going to have to pull that back for the time being. Now, the Hedgehogs, they are super fast. This is like the fastest unit in the game. So you can see they do a really great job of just kind of kiting everything away, dealing that damage, getting out. In the meantime, it looks like, yeah, Mana is trying to kind of gain control of some of this map. These are meat farms. These provide supply, and you can see little units that pop out, these Fellhawks. You can't control those, but those will help you to defend.
Yeah, and they'll generate up to 3 of them. So if you keep that up for a little while, it's too much of a nuisance to commit into that area. And it's interesting to see that he sets those farms up in basically a big intersection here on the map. So you can see that Mount is continuing to push out and develop.
Now, a little bit of harassment comes in here. Once again, those very fast Fiends come in. The Lancer's having a hard time catching them, but of course the Hedgehog can go up and clear these out pretty quickly.
Yeah, one thing about brutes is when you turn them into fiends, you're really committing, especially when you're on the other side of the map. So the amount of damage that's coming out is pretty scary, but as long as you're able to hang on, you will outlast them.
Now, both sides look to have 3 bases up in mining. So that's a pretty quick build into economy here. We're going to see a lot of macros starting to come up from both sides. And it does look as those conclaves are being added. Mana is going to be going towards Gaunts, which is a ranged unit here for the Infernals, which has a really interesting upgrade that lets it infest units that you're attacking.
And when a unit is infested and then killed, it then spawns 2 more fiends. So you can get to a situation where you can snowball a fight pretty quickly.
That is exactly it. And of course, when you get masses and masses of smaller units, these quicker units, not going to do as well. Like, you can kite a little bit, but it's going to be really time intensive. And you can see right now, he's trying to utilize these hedgehogs. He's actually trying to clear this creep camp that did come back online and take that over from Mana. But it looks like Mana should be able to hold on and take out half of himself.
Okay, so the Magmadon comes through there. That unit, it's the quadruped there, it has a dive function that can basically stun for half a second. So if you can get a couple Magmadons and get a series of stuns, you can chain that together into a big kill, like we're seeing being attempted here by Mana.
Yeah, Mana's really switching up the way that he's doing this. You can see the Hedgehogs, they're still trying to harass. That was actually a very nice, very quick heal there on the Magmadon, so it does stay alive, but it's taken a lot of damage here as well. Really annoying harassment here by TLO. I think he's doing a good job keeping some pressure on Mana.
Yeah, the problem for TLO right now, as far as I can tell at least, is that the Hedgehogs, while they're a threat and they can always run away, causing damage to accumulate over time, Mana seems to have a beefier army where if he actually takes a fight, oh my god, bad move there by TLO. He tried to retreat back, but went through the army line there of Mana, and Mana's going to continue to press forward.
Yeah, you can see those Magmadons with their quick stuns doing a great job of helping him to pick some of those off. And as he goes in for the attack, you can see quite a few Lancers being added in here as well from TLO. So those Lancers going to get in here, and they're doing a good job of tanking, but yeah, he comes up, and let's see if he can break through this third base.
Okay, we've got the Bobs over here with the overcharge. It looks like that's going to force Mana back for a little bit. And there's a lot of units falling over here for Mana. He lost about maybe a fourth of his army over there. Now, whenever you force out the overcharge, you know that once it's done, there may be another opportunity to try to come back in here. So why not leverage this situation, take out this vision camp, and maybe dive back in again if he thinks he has enough.
And that's really TLO's vision camp, so that's letting him see the positioning of this army. Now he comes in once again, those Gaunts are ready, and they are starting to infest a lot of these units. So if he actually starts to take this battle, we're gonna see a lot of Fiends pop out, and there they are. The Fiends start to come out of everything, and some damage being dealt here to TLO.
Yeah, the static defense does fall. I see about 5 Hedgehogs here continuing to try to fight. The Bobs are gonna be pulled, but there's no overcharge on them this time.
Yeah, nice little charge in there from the Magmadon, but it will get surrounded, it will get picked off. The Fiends still coming up here and causing some trouble. Finally, a Vulcan hits the field. This is going to be a key unit for TLO as this match goes further. Those Vulcans, they're a little bit slow, but they are fantastic at area effect damage.
Yeah, and they've got a dive function that allows them to plow through trees. When they are doing damage in certain areas, you really need to get out of there, or everything's going to melt. I'm speaking from first-hand experience here. Now, it looks like TLO defends that, but how much of the map does Mana actually have? Sometimes it could be misleading when you see a fight lost on one side of the map, only to realize that Mana's actually grown pretty effectively here. It looks like he has a base just to the south of the screenshot here, if we could check that. Yeah, so he's in pretty good shape, slightly oversaturated. 12 imps is the max you want to have mining there for now. It looks like he has 1 extra. And he's going to be, he just now takes a 4th base over here. So, again, this game's very new. We don't know exactly how much each faction is supposed to have an even fight. But Mana is up in 1 base.
And in fact, he has taken the center, and he's starting to make a lot of defensive structures there. This is why it's called Secluded Grove, right? This center place, it's a double base. So super, super powerful to have. That's something that TLO is going to have to deal with, or Mana's just going to run him over.
Yeah, and the issue right now is it seems that Mana can basically go for control play. He can roam the map and gobble up all the other resource locations, and while TLO might not be able to be killed here, he certainly can't go out on the map and try to stop the growth that Mana's getting.
Now, Mana coming in, he has a lot of Magmadons here. You can see those great stuns going out, but with enough Vulcans, it looks like TLO's getting pretty cost efficient here. He pulls his Bobs forward and is trying to overwhelm, but we will see Mana turn around.
And, you know, with the Bobs already going back home here, it looks like TLO's going to push it a little bit further. Now, there's a lot of Vulcans here. So we got to see how well TLO can control this situation. The kiting for Mana looking pretty good. It looks like he's going to come in from the side now.
And don't forget, these Vulcans can plow through those trees, so that might be something we end up seeing. Pushes forward towards this Shroud Stone. That is kind of like a cannon that helps to defend quite a bit. And it looks like Mana's starting to take a very good fight here. You've got to be careful. You see a ton of imps spawning right now as he infests the units of TLO.
Beautifully done. TLO going to have to retreat and go back. Now, with those imps, normally you would have to hyper commit to them, but the fact that there's Shroud so close by, you can always go back there and regen. Keep in mind that any of these Infernal units that are on the Shroud, they gain what we call white health. It's like an additional health bar that you can see at the top. Whenever they're not on the Shroud, that bar diminishes, but when you occupy the Shroud, it builds back up, which gives you a pretty strong buff, especially when you have Shroud in close proximity to your opponent's base.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you see there is some static D here for TLO, and he's going to try to be able to hold on to this third base. It's a really strong attack coming in from Mana. A ton of Gaunts up here in the front. And oh man, how did that even happen? We have a ton of Fiends going to the natural expansion as well. This is bad news for TLO.
Yeah, it's not clear that TLO could even hold this position over here at his third, but already losing so many workers at his second base here. It does appear that TLO is going to drive him back, but the damage has been done, Artosis.
Yeah, this is starting to look very, very bad for TLO.
GG.
He calls, GG comes out. And that means that Mana is going to go ahead and win that first game. Really, really well played. One thing we should mention about these two legends of StarCraft 2, Mana right now is ranked within the top 10 players on the ladder in the closed beta.
That's right. He's been very active. He seems to be in very good shape. I think TLO did a good job back there. It was impressive to see that surround on the initial Brute and the shutdown of the Fiends. But at the end of the day, there was not a whole lot that TLO could do with his Hedgehogs to deny the growth, especially going to the south and then, of course, into the center, which is the primary feature of that map. Getting those bases, having that proximity, able to hammer over and over and over again at TLO's third, and then, of course, closing it out by having those Fiends come in and wipe out the workers. I think it was at the main or the natural?
At the natural expansion, yeah. I think Mana did a great job of really growing his economy, getting a giant army there, some very important moves. And TLO, I feel like in the early game, he was maybe outplaying Mana a little bit, but maybe his Vulcans were a little bit slow there. He really needs those to help to push back those Gaunts, to push back those Fiends. And we didn't ever end up seeing anything like a med tech, which I'm hoping to see in this next round to help add some sustain to the army of TLO.
Yeah, well, we could go back in that game and look at, shutting down the production facility for the first Hedgehog there. Did slow down TLO quite a bit, and I think that actually rippled through the rest of game one. He didn't seem to have anywhere near as much control.
That's very true. That's a really good point.
It seems like Vanguard really wants to leverage Hedgehogs to then get their own map control and tech behind it. But we're going to be going into game two in a second here. Now, all these maps are very different, and we'll see if there's a different idea or strategy employed here from TLO, and maybe we can be fortunate enough to have this tied up 1-1 here.
Yeah, I'm hoping for it. It looks like we're just about ready to get into that next game. Let's see what map we're on. It's not going to be Secluded Grove.
Yeah, I believe this is Jagged Maw.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting map. Let's talk about the map before we really even get into the players or the strategies here. So this map, I believe inspired by Scrap Station from StarCraft 2. Both players spawn at the right, but they're not close to each other by ground. You basically have to move in this big horseshoe shape through the your side of the map all the way around to theirs. There are these siege camps that you can hit. So like we saw the vision camps that were hit earlier.
Yeah, the red ones there, you can see a siege camp on either side.
Yep.
And if you go ahead and creep these camps, it basically unlocks a catapult, which is going to move towards your opponent. You can't control it. You can mess with its AI a little bit, slow it down, things like that. But it will go for a push. So that's a camp that you're really going to want to time out.
Yeah, and if they have a stronger army than you, you basically get it's like a siege tank push, effectively. But this tank is mobile and continuing to move on, and you can be overpowered in that position. So a very cool function. It does remind me a little bit of like when you kill a camp in Heroes of the Storm and suddenly these units spawn out and push the other side's opponent's side of the map. In this game, it does appear that once more we're going to have fast expand plays from both players.
Yeah, that's pretty standard right now within Stormgate. This is kind of funny to see, actually. This is great micro from TLO. He's using his scout to try to maybe steal that creep kill, put some damage onto the Brute, and that allowed the Brute to take a lot more damage from the creep as well. So very nicely done, and he does decide that is a choice you can make in the game, is to split that Brute into a couple Fiends and chase away the scout of your opponent.
Yeah, the scout, a bit of a nuisance if you've ever played against it in a game of Stormgate. You definitely want to try to get rid of that. And so, with that, There will be no more vision over here on this side of the map for the time being. I don't know if there's going to be any kind of surprising tech here from Mana. It seems like Mana has a pretty good understanding of how to develop in a safe way and do more of a control play.
Yeah, it does look like he's going for 3 Iron Volts at the moment. Again, this makes the Brutes, this makes the Magmadons later on when you unlock them. So we should be seeing that same type of pressure that killed the Mech Bay for TLO earlier on. But don't forget, because of the way that Jagged Maw is shaped, that travel distance is going to be a little bit longer to get to your opponent.
That's right. We've got the Lancer out now, and this is just some scouting over here from Mana with those Fiends here. He'll try to hiccup any bobs he can, whether it's going to be for the Luminite or the Theorem here. Just anything to buy a little bit of time. As we all know, in an RTS game, just slowing things down by a few seconds can start to really stack up over time.
Yeah, and both the Fiends end up going down there. Almost gets a Bob, but TLO does end up defending that a little bit better. It feels like TLO just with a slightly stronger opener this game. I do want to see, though, if he can get that Hedgehog production up high enough to maybe deal a little bit more damage in that early mid-game than what we saw in the previous map.
It would seem to me, I could be wrong, but with Mana going it looks like he'd go for a push pretty early on over here. I think he's going to have a lot of muscle to come out on the map. Now, obviously, you know, Hedgehogs can kite pretty effectively, but I wonder what kind of interactions that would create with the catapult.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Now, some Fiends have been split off and sent up here. They go ahead and try to surround that Lancer, but a very quick overcharge on these Bobs going to help out. The Fiends going to pull back. Again, don't forget they're losing health over time when they're not on Shroud. So they're not going to last forever, and TLO needs to try to outlast them here.
Yeah, nice kill on that Bob. Going to do whatever damage he can. Obviously, the half-life on these Fiends isn't going to last for that long. And so he's just trying to do anything he can to scout, to slow down development, anything like that. Even going to go for this resource camp. Can he get the kill over here? No, not enough HP on those.
Yeah, it doesn't look like. In fact, that'll soften it up. TLO is going to be able to come over and take that resource camp. Immediately get a little bit of extra Luminite there.
Okay, we've got Brute development really kicking in now. Are we going to have an attempt on this siege camp? It looks like he's forked the Brutes off. He's got 3 down here towards the northern middle, which he turns into Fiends right when they get over there. There's 2 more Brutes pushing over here on the left side of the map, and it looks like they're going to go for the vision camp. We see the Hedgehog, I believe, got vision of that and spotted that.
Yeah, it definitely did end up seeing that. He is going to pull it away. That would take a long time to try to kill 2 Brutes with 1 Hedgehog. In the meantime, utilizing those smaller trees that smaller infantry units can run through with the Fiends, trying to get up here quickly. And you can see, once again, just a small group of Fiends coming in. You know, these probably remind you, if you're a StarCraft player, of like Zerglings, for instance, and just being a nuisance. It's not like something that's going to end the game, but look, he's, you know, killing a Bob here, killing a Lancer there, and they're not that expensive for Mana.
No, not at all. And he could basically, oh, I love this. So the Fiends come in there, but then that allows these Brutes to come down. Now he does get a surround on that first Brute, and was not able to force those into Fiends, so a little bit of a control error there from Mana. In a perfect play, from Mana's perspective, you would let that Brute take as much damage as possible and then split it at the last second.
Yeah.
Just to be clear for everybody watching, you have to manually do that, the Fiend split.
That's right. And these 2 Fiends are going to try to get away. They're just so fast, so even the Hedgehog's having a hard time getting over there. Of course, coming over here and going to destroy that vision camp. But right now, we have Hedgehogs out, but you know, maybe TLO isn't going to push as heavily with these. Maybe he's deciding instead to go more quickly into that higher tech, get things like the Vulcans out.
I think you're probably right, Artosis. I mean, just having a couple of those Hedgehogs out can create the illusion of that situation, mirroring what we saw there in Game 1. But you're right, he's changing his tech pretty quickly behind this.
Yeah, it
We're
looks
having
like
a lot of barracks is thrown down here, in fact.
Yeah, BioConnect's lab as well, and no big surprise right there, because he does want to get those Lancers out. And the Lancers definitely have some very strong upgrade, where whenever they're getting hit, they get a 5% speed bonus. And I mean, that just allows you to really move them around very quickly and close with the enemy in a fight.
Another scout moving over here, this time on the right side of the map. It's been a much more quiet game than the last one. We've had a couple of harassment plays over here from Mana getting in there, getting a Bob here or there. But TLO's defense has been pretty solid, and TLO teching in such a different direction should deliver us into a very different looking mid-game here.
Well, right now, it looks like this camp going to be taken down. This is one of those siege camps we were talking about before. So he's going to try to do a push, but it looks like TLO is going for a counterattack right now. So if TLO is on the other side of the map attacking Mana, he can't really push with the catapult.
Yeah, it's basically you know, a punish here. TLO realizing that Mana is committed to that siege camp. Now he can come down here and actually do this counter that's already done some damage. He's now making progress up here into denying mining resources. These imps on the run right now.
Wow, this really feels like a very good attack here from TLO. Again, not as many hedgehogs as we saw previously, but he's doing a great job with those lancers, putting some pressure on. And here comes the catapult.
So the catapult, just to remind everybody, you can't control it. It's just going to path its way down into the base. And the way these bases are set up, if they're lining the bottom, if it sees a unit, it will fire. It's not mindless. It's not just going to go and try to hit structures. But this puts a position now where TLO has to address this. Does he try to snipe the catapult? What does he do? He comes in, and the Magmadons go for a very nice stun. The catapult damage connects.
Yeah, and he's actually having some great micro. As you can see, you can dodge these catapult shots. So really well done from TLO. Oh, but the Magmadon just slides in there with the stun. A little bit of a problem. The catapult gets a great hit on all those lancers to the right, and TLO feels like he has to retreat.
Yeah, TLO realizing he's got to go back and lick his wounds here. He's going to have more reinforcements come up. Now, the further the catapult gets down and closer to TLO's base, the farther away the reinforcements are from Mana. So there's a chance that he's going to get deep in enough here that there's a way to recover. Oh, but look at what he's got here.
Yeah, Spriggan's coming out right now. These are air units, and they just do attacks towards the ground. And because nothing shoots up for TLO, he's in a bit of trouble. They're adding a ton of damage right now. There's a huge amount of Lancers, and he's going to go ahead and try his best to push back through all this, but he needs some anti-air for those Spriggans as well.
He's doing some damage, but that catapult's still here. These shots really accumulating over onto the Lancers as Spriggan's continuing to come forward. The catapult's pretty low. He goes in here first around. Looks like the Magmadon about to fall, as is the catapult.
Yeah, he takes that all down, does end up losing a structure, but now you see he is making some exos here as well. You can see with the guns, a pretty solid unit overall. He also has those med techs there that are going to help to heal everything. So instead of some of the unit sets that we saw in that first game, it feels like TLO this game is going for more of a bio composition. Like you can almost think of it like a marine medic zealot, right?
Sure.
We have the med techs for the healing. They also deal a little bit of damage. We have the exos as that ranged attack, as that anti-air, and of course the Lancers as the front line.
I really like the idea of having the Spriggans merge in with the push. I was just talking about how it's going to be hard to get Brutes all the way down there to meet up with this push, but the Spriggans come in there very nicely. Now, with anti-air available, the Spriggans have to be careful not to overextend.
Yeah, air units are almost always much weaker than their ground counterparts, right? You're trying to use them for their mobility, but here against the main push, it might be a little bit harder. But when I say that, look at the size of the army right now from Mana. He's done a great job with his macro this game.
Yeah, it's not clear to me who's actually got the better army. We got the Magmadon coming in there with that initial stun. TLO beginning to kite back over here. And it looks like he might even be able to wrap around with these Brutes. There's one Lancer over here to kind of draw the attention from some of these melee units away. TLO begins to get a stronger fight and now pushing north.
Man, that is a lot of exos right now. The Lancers doing such a good job tanking in the front. Of course, as those med techs get up, they can continually heal them as well and keep that front line going. But, oh man, a huge amount of Fiends being spawned out of those Brutes. They're going to push forward immediately.
And I don't know that there's any way for TLO to get out of here. He's going to micro back. It looks like there's maybe a narrow path back there, but as the Magmadon comes in here with his stun, the damage continues to pile up.
Just a fantastic slide there from the Magmadon. That charge really dealing a ton of damage. And even though TLO finds probably the best position to make a favorable trade there, there's just too many Infernals on the field.
This is becoming a really crazy game, Artosis. A real back and forth over here. We're seeing both players. They've pretty much filled up Mana fills up the entire top of the map, and TLO fills up the entire bottom. So, how long can this possibly go on for? There's only so many resources on the map available here. Something's got to give.
Yeah, and, you know, are they going to just continually attack right now, or are they going to go towards those expansions on the other side? Now, that unit that you see going up and down, this is a Doombringer. It's basically like a transport. It can pick units up when it lands and then bring them elsewhere, but also when it lands, it makes Shroud, so that white health starts to regenerate. It's a really fantastic unit for support like this. You see him putting that down, regaining this white health so quickly, really buffing his army with these units.
Yeah, giving a really good foothold right here. For Mana, he's going to continue to try to come forward, and you know, with the buffing on this, oh, looks like the Magmadon gets shot down. TLO beginning to fight back. Was this an overextension here from Mana?
Yeah.
Oh, we've got Weavers now.
It might be. Oh my God, we even have a Weaver coming in, and it goes ahead and uses that Lash command. That is something that pulls units towards it so that you can kill them on your own Shroud. Dealing a lot of damage there as well. Tons of Fiends splitting off and going after these Exos. Does TLO actually have enough to hold on? I think he does.
I think he can barely hang on. The Fiends, again, they're going to try to pull back. Remember, they can get more white health by staying on top of the Shroud, so suddenly they have a very different type of sustain than they had before. But TLO has to do something to get rid of this. It looks like he's going to fork these Fiends off over here and try to do a counterattack similar to what we saw in Game 1, maybe going for the Bobs over at the second or the third base.
Well, he comes back. He is still trying to break through it here. A ton of Brutes have come down. You can see those Gaunts right now. They're trying to infest these units so he can get more Fiends as they end up dying. The Weaver adding a surprising amount of damage in here as well.
Okay, the damage beginning to really pile up here. If TLO can hold this and survive this attack, I don't know that he's going to be able to defend the bases that are behind this. This could be a 2-0.
Yeah, it really looks like it right now. That Magmadon charging in, doing a great job of pushing everything back. And now this area is becoming Mana's. He is starting to destroy these expansions. TLO needs to make a stand here. If he loses these bottom left bases, I don't think there's much chance of him winning this game.
That's right. The Bobs, they've been overcharged now here. They're going to try to defend. I just don't see a real opportunity here for TLO to overpower in this situation. We've got some more Lancers coming up. Mana now microing away, but so many workers have been dropped now. That's going to really stifle the amount of resources that can come in next.
Man, this is just a great attack. A great rallying coming in here from Mana as well. TLO continues to pump out units. He's trying to break through, but you can see the Fiend production here is amazing between infesting, the fact that you have these Brutes that turn into Fiends as well. It's just a ton of units that you have to deal with.
Yeah, it's a lot. We've got the push continuing to come back over here as we're seeing everything fall apart. He's basically deep into the infrastructure right now for TLO. And with the infrastructure spread out like this, you start to lose those buildings. You can't produce as much. Sometimes units pop out, get isolated, and killed immediately.
Yeah, and you can see as he brings the Magmadons in as well, it's too much. GG is called, and that is going to be it. Mana takes down TLO 2-0 here with the Infernals.
A really impressive showing here from Mana. Now, everybody, we're just getting started. Mana will now go on to face off against Moon. Moon, of course, the most legendary player ever from Warcraft 3. We've got a quick trailer for you guys, and after that, we're going to be going to the main stage. Don't go away.
Stormgate unstable.
Shut it off!
The hell was that?
Cut the power! Now!
It is too late, my friend.
What in God's name have we done?
What a way to start off the competition. Congratulations, Mana, and thank you, TLO. We are gonna take a closer look at those games. We've got our Toasters on the stage, and we are joined by Kevin Dong, AKA Monk for you old RTS heads, who is our lead competitive designer at Frost Giant for Stormgate. So, gentlemen, why don't you talk about what you saw today?
I tell you, that was really impressive. More units being used than I actually anticipated for being so early in a closed beta. What did you think?
Yeah, I was really impressed by both the number of types of units that were used, but also how dynamic the games were. A lot of back and forths, especially with Mana poking in a lot with Fiends, with Brutes all over the map in both games. And on the opposite side, TLO was poking in with his Hedgehog. So a lot of players going back and forth on the map.
Yeah, I understand you have some clips for us to take a look at.
I have very carefully chosen some choice clips. So let's roll with the first clip. All right, in this clip we see that Mana is poking with the 3 Brutes who can have the opportunity to transform into Fiends. They split themselves and become much more, I wouldn't say powerful, but they do a lot more DPS at the cost of durability. We also see throughout this early game, he's baited a lot of Bob overcharges, which is a defensive mechanic for Vanguard. But the command post is going to run out of energy soon, which means that the workers can't really help that much at defending. So he's going to deal a good amount of damage early on. Yeah, I really like this pressure that he was doing early on here. And of course, he's only cost Luminite as well, the Brutes, so very easy to manage making these. One thing that Taste and I were talking about a lot, that mech bay going down really seemed to affect the rest of the game. Yeah, totally. It totally affected the pace of the game. Usually you want a lot of Hedgehogs to give you map control in order to scout what your opponent is doing, in order to see, oh, when are they transitioning, so they can, so that the Vanguard player can transition to units that can actually fight the huge hordes of Brutes, Fiends, Gaunts, and later Magmadons. And I think that comes into play a little later. Yeah, and one thing I did want to mention here as well, the actual mech bay itself is probably not positioned correctly. And this is like one of the tenets of RTS games. And it's great to see that already in use this early by these StarCraft pros, right? Where that building is a little bit out of position. And that may have been what trickled down to a TLO loss this game. If that had been, for instance, where the habitat is and the habitat was in the other spot, he may have been able to repair it, keep it alive, get more Hedgehogs. Little things really build into big things in RTS games. Yeah, brilliant observation. In this particular closed beta phase, we've seen a lot of SimCitying come into play. You need to basically wall off against some of the Fiend run-bys, some of the Hedgehog run-bys. Yeah, just great development of the game that we're seeing in the various closed alphas and closed betas. All right, well, great first clip here. Let's go ahead and jump to the next one. All right, and here we see some of the creep camps that are being fought over. Chickens, of course, are a placeholder, but we can see that you really want to compete for these camps in order to get the resources and the benefits that come from the camps. And TLO actually stole both chickens in this clip with his very mobile hedgehogs. He's going to get the money from there. Unfortunately, he's not going to get the residual effect, which is the vision tower there. But still, he gains 75 Luminite, and he denies it from his opponent. A 150 Luminite swing. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And you know what I like about seeing this scene? It's almost as if, of course, your whole team, many of the people on your team have worked at Blizzard over the years, and it feels like you're finding like a sweet spot right in between StarCraft 2 and Warcraft 3, where we have some of these interesting interactions. It's not the end of the world that you're going to lose this creep camp, but we're having really cool fights around it. Yeah, exactly. One of the big selling points of creep camps is we want players to go out into the middle of the map so they have these mini engagements. We can see here that both players, because they're fighting for these creep camps, they see exactly what their opponent's unit composition is, and therefore they are kind of like passively scouting each other. They're not taken aback by whatever the opponent can bring. Yeah, and one more thing, the Hedgehogs, it just seems like they're very strong right now, how fast they are, how they can just kind of lock on and kill something off very quickly. But I love seeing the counterplay that Infernals have here as well with the Magmadon, right? Charging in, getting that stun, and doing a little bit of punish, because I feel like that's really important for a healthy RTS, is that you're not always taking damage, you have some counterplay. Yeah, and on the Hedgehog side, the Hedgehogs are going to be a little slower than the Magmadon charge, but if you anticipate the charge, if you're familiar with that, then you can actually dodge the charge as well. So a lot of dynamic back and forth that we're hoping for. All right, excellent clip here. Let's go ahead and see the next one. All right, I think this is going to be one of the first big fights. There's going to be a push with these Gaunts, with a single Magmadon, I believe, and some Brutes. The Hedgehogs are really good at harassment, but they're not so good in straight-up fights. We really want the Vulcans, you want the Bob Overcharge, and possibly because of the early Mech Bay loss early on, we don't see any Vulcans, which are typically used to defend this push.
Yeah, that's true. It did feel like the Vulcans were a little bit late this game. I did feel during this, I liked the Buzzsaw Cannon because everything was basically melee-based coming up. But I felt like, oh man, maybe if he had one more, this would have been more holdable as well.
Yeah, exactly. Great mention of the use of the Buzzsaw Cannon. Vanguard has a defensive turret called the Sentry Post, and you actually can put any infantry into that Sentry Post, and it will transform into one of many defensive towers. The Buzzsaw Cannon is really good against biological units, really good at close-up fights, but unfortunately, just because one tower is not going to let you defend this huge horde of Infernal units.
Yeah, and really those Vulcans, I think, were what we're missing in this one.
Yeah, and another thing to point out is, you had mentioned SimCity before. The Buzzsaw Cannon was actually placed in a position where a lot of not a lot of Bobs could repair it. So another case where a building in a corner might have hurt TLO.
Absolutely. All right, another great clip. Let's go ahead and check out the next.
And I think this is one of the final fights. Mana is putting up a Shroud Stone in a forward position so that his units can regenerate health, and he's really just giving it to TLO. TLO is trying to push out, but the combination of Gaunts, Magmadons, he's really a little higher tech than TLO, but in addition to that, he's using some of his global abilities, like he's able to infest his opponent, which deals a lot of damage to the Vanguard units over time, and also whenever a Vanguard unit dies, it's actually going to make a fiend. So Infernal, as a faction, they're all about killing their opponents and also just sacrificing opponents. So that's why Brutes sacrifice themselves into fiends. You kill your opponent's units, and they create fiends. And anytime any unit dies on the battlefield, you actually get a global resource called Animus, which you can use for these global abilities like this Infest ability we see here. Yeah,
very, very useful, as you can see. And of course, that Infest, very popular right now to be able to get out all these fiends. I would have loved to see if we had a Medtech with Nanoswarm at that point to help heal up the Vulcans, because the Vulcans do seem like they are a very important counter against these fiend-heavy plays.
Exactly. Typically, this kind of composition, you'll want to be a little more Medtech heavy. You kind of saw that in the later game, but in this particular game, the Vulcans just didn't have enough survivability. They're taken out quite early by not only the Magmadon stuns, but just the DPS from the Gaunts in the back line.
All right, a great fight there from Mana. Let's go into our next clip now.
And I think this is going to be the final closer. There's a lot of towers there. We have the Buzzsaw Cannon. We have the Repair-O-Matic, which is the version of the turret that has a Bob in it, and then they can repair all mechanical units. So a lot of great tower use from TLO, but unfortunately, just because of the economic advantages from Mana throughout the game and the mini skirmishes, most of which Mana took, I think it just all added up, and we see a GG from TLO.
Yeah, and I do want to point out as well, we didn't quite get to point out in this game, but we did in the second. I love that he reinforced with some Spriggans, right? Because this type of composition we see from TLO doesn't really have the anti-air. That's always been a problem for like mechanical armies in RTS games. And the Spriggans were doing a great job as well helping out, even though lower in number here.
Yeah, exactly. TLO was super focused on Lancer Vulcan. That's one of the strongest compositions you could make against this ground army, but he just didn't have any answer to the Spriggans. Usually you would want some Hedgehogs maybe, some Exos, which we saw in the next game. But yeah, the Spriggans, I actually haven't seen too much of that in the games that I've observed in the closed beta, but like a brilliant idea for Mana.
Yeah, I think it's something that'll probably catch on over time, but let's go ahead and check some clips from that second game.
I love this from TLO. So the siege camps on Jagged Maw, which is this map, are one of the primary aspects of this map. If you kill this camp, you get a neutral catapult, which kind of A-moves across the map and helps you fight. It's very powerful, but TLO knows this, and he actually scouted the timing of when the siege camp was being done. So not only did he know that Mana was out of position, but now he knows when he needs to defend this this catapult. So he's going to attack while mana is creeping and deal some economic damage to these imps.
Yeah, I love that move as well. You know, the fact that his scout was actually in there seeing the timing of that siege camp allows him to come up here, deal some damage, take out a Shroud Stone, you know, just be a bit of a nuisance. And of course, he has a timer in his head for that catapult coming so he can get back in a defensive position.
Exactly. And we're going to see the results of that, I think, in the next clip.
All right, let's jump into that next clip. And yeah, the catapult really showing a lot of damage here.
Yeah, so one of the strategies that you can use to defend the catapult, I think what new players do is they actually just, oh shoot, there's a catapult, let me just build up in my base. But you can actually do, the catapult, it takes a long time to shoot, and it's very slow, so you can actually dodge the shots of the catapult, and you can delay it a lot while you build defenses in your base. And in that time, you can counter the catapult. So TLO, I don't think he actually necessarily wants to win this fight. Ideally, he would want to pick up the catapult, but he doesn't really have the units for that. Usually you want a lot more hedgehogs or maybe some scouts to cut the catapult off. But he's buying a ton of time for some sentry posts back home. Maybe he's going to build some Vulcans back home in order to defend these hordes of infernal units.
I love some of this micro as well, utilizing that Lancer upgrade where they get the speed boost when they're being attacked. You could see he could pull out just in time to really minimize damage. And most of the catapult shots hit, but when one like that hits, you really feel it.
Yeah, I think there's still maybe a bit more he could do there, but yeah, just awesome thoughts from Teal. I really love the way he just microed, especially his Lancers throughout this entire series.
Yeah, very, very cool with that push. Let's go ahead and jump into our next clip here.
And this is the next clip. We saw Mana is actually reinforcing with Spriggans this time. Spriggans actually have an ability where every time they attack anything, the thing that they attack will lose both production speed and attack speed. So another good idea to reinforce is that you can actually hit turrets with the Spriggans and then delay or reduce their effectiveness, which helps you defend versus the catapult. But TL just charges in, goes for the catapult. I think he's going to snipe off the catapult. But now, like you pointed out, he doesn't really have the anti-air.
Yeah, he was very, very Lancer heavy here, getting into medtechs and everything, but did get into exos. Another thing to mention, you know, none of the middle of the map had really been cleared out yet. So the Spriggans can fly across all the terrain and get up to that army very quickly. So again, I'm really loving the Spriggan play that we've seen here from Mana.
Yeah, to be honest, like not a very common unit in the closed beta, but just brilliant use of it from Mana.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into our next clip here.
And right now, one thing I noticed was that TLO went really exo heavy after that push, and I wonder if he overcommitted to exos probably. And I think Mana saw that. Usually you would want mostly brutes in this army, but I think he saw, oh, you're very Lancer weak, which is or Lancer light, which is the counter to mass fiends. So he's like, oh, I actually don't want brutes here. I think Fiends would be a better solution. Yeah. So I like that as Infernals, you can really dynamically choose which unit you want to have in the battle. And he chose the correct choice. TLO, I think he was actually doing really well in the previous fight before this, but he kind of just got cornered in the back. I don't think he knew the terrain that well, and therefore he kind of lost his entire army there. But yeah, I just love the decision, the micro from TLO, and also the decision making from Mana.
Yeah, and I even liked him pulling back here. And I mean, you see the Magmadon come up and stun everything, and that's really kind of the end of it. But yeah, you know, these Fiends, we've seen such strong plays out of Mana. It really does feel like you need to dedicate some sort of splash damage, some sort of area of effect damage to take those out.
Yes, common choices are, of course, the Vulcan, which we've seen a lot throughout this entire series. Also, the Atlas is a unit that deals a lot of damage in a very large AoE. Players haven't been opting for that as much because it takes a while to get to, but we might see it in a future match.
Yeah, hoping to see it. Let's go to our next clip now.
All right, now we see another push from Mana. This is not going to be the end necessarily, but it's going to be the beginning of the end. These Harbingers that we see are units that can deploy, and they are not only transports, but they create Shroud in the front of the battlefield, which allows Infernal units to really regen their white health very quickly. So yeah, we see TLO, I think, barely hold this because He has the defender's advantage, of course. I think he's also going to have some flak turrets, which are exos in the sentry post. Those are very powerful. We see the Weaver kind of grab a exo over to him, get over here, and then we see hordes of reinforcing units over and over again. The flak cannons are doing a ton of damage, and I think it's just like a kind of a war of attrition where Mana's economy is just slightly better. TLO, I think, just got this base, so he didn't. His army didn't catch up as quickly, and eventually I think TLO is just going to fall.
You know, I think that this battle in particular kind of made me excited about the way we're going to see micromanagement evolve. You know, the fact that he's bringing in his own shroud.
Yeah.
And then also, like with the Exos, we saw good micro, but maybe not placed perfectly against the Magmadons coming in, right? That's going to be a unit in the future we see pros really focusing on dodging the stun of.
Yeah, and one thing I'm really excited about is the Lancer in particular. The Lancer has an ability that says every time you attack me, I get faster and I attack faster. So maybe later on in the development of Stormgate, we see players say, oh, maybe I just don't want to attack these Lancers as much as possible, go into the back line in order to hit those juicy Exos instead.
Yeah, very, very cool stuff. Let's go. Do you have any more clips here?
I think there's just the final clip where the game kind of ends, but that's more of like a closer. I would say nothing too interesting happened here. There's a final overcharge. I think this is the Vanguard version of the scans all over the map or the mule dropping. But yeah, we see Bob overcharge. This is a final defense. TL is trying his best with mass infantry. We see another infest, but there's just carnage all over the map as every unit falls.
Yeah, some awesome clips. I think it was a really fun series. And one thing I have to say, right, we're like very early in the closed beta. And we don't even have tier 3 here yet, but we're still having very exciting endgames.
Oh yeah, yeah. The games like I think Mana and TL have done a really great job of like showcasing what this game can be, and just like how the unit compositions can be very different. The back and forth with the creep camps and just the back and forth overall, really great games. I'm excited even more for what Moon can put up against them.
Exciting games and very exciting with you guys casting. It's been a joy, Artosis, having you bring your expertise to the cast, the analysis as well. And this is not the last you will see of Artosis, but may I send you to the back.
All right, thank you.
And we're gonna have Kevin stick around because we took a look at some of the 1v1 action that's coming up in Stormgate, but we have a bit more to talk about because Stormgate is more than just 1v1. So Kevin Dung, aka Monk, you have stayed with us. You are the lead competitive designer at Frost Giant for Stormgate, but you have a long history in this space. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I would say my history in RTS really began when I started posting on Team Liquid. I was started as a lowly poster, but I started writing a lot of strategy guides. I volunteered to help with moderation, and from there, I was offered a job at Team Liquid where I was project managing a lot of the early Team Liquid days back when I was just a fledgling company in New York, basically. From then on, I moved on to become the lead co-op designer at Blizzard for StarCraft 2. Where I worked primarily on the cooperative mode, but also in the competitive mode. And from then on, I moved to Frost Giant, where I work on Stormgate very happily as the primary competitive designer. But I also work on I have a big hand in the cooperative mode as well. And I'm really excited not only to show off the 1v1 matches, the competitive mode, but also to talk about co-op.
Yeah, let's get into co-op a little bit. You've got the 3VE that you're focusing on now. Tell me why you think it's important to focus on that, what you're excited about with it.
Yeah, I think there's a really large audience of RTS players who really enjoy the power fantasy of building this huge army, sending it across the map, and just rolling their opponents with that army. And I think this infinitely replayable mode that we've developed in 3VE Stormgate Co-op, it kind of fulfills that fantasy.
Well, you mentioned your history at Blizzard, a lot of work on the competitive, on the co-op there. How does that inform what you're doing here at Frost Giant?
Yeah, we learned a lot of lessons while developing co-op on the StarCraft 2 team. Co-op really, from the ground up initially, it was not designed or it was not envisioned to be as successful as initially was. It started off as a very modest mode, from very humble beginnings. There were only 6 commanders, just a few maps, but then the team realized, oh wow, this mode is actually really popular. People are really engaging with this mode. So every year on the team, we figured out, oh, what's the next best thing we can give to the players? What's the next best building block we can give to them? And honestly, like taking a look back at it, I think we did a pretty good job. But after like many years of development, when you take a look back, because every year we added one thing, the end product was not as cohesive as it could have been. There were many just staggered building blocks on top of each other. So at Stormgate, we've taken a lot of lessons we learned there, and we can now develop a game mode from the ground up of what we want it to be. We can look at it from the whole picture. And I think how I would best put it is that I think it's really much easier to hit a target if you know exactly what you're aiming for.
Well, that's really exciting. You've had all these opportunities to iterate. You have seen what the fans have been very interested in, and you yourself, as a fan, have brought a lot of your own experiences to it. So with all that, what is it going to look like? What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I think there's kind of three things we're really focusing on with 3VE co-op. It's going to be focused on replayability, a focus on progression slash customization, and then finally the team aspect. We want it to really feel good to play as a team. So with replayability, in StarCraft, the replayability mostly came from the variation on enemy waves. So we're still going to have that in Stormgate co-op, but in addition to that, we're going to have lots of variations on where these attack waves are going to come from. And in addition to that, we're going to have variation on a map-to-map basis. So every map is going to have something a little different, and every time you play it, it's going to feel very different. In addition, we're also obviously going to be continually developing maps. So yeah, every few months you can look to an exciting new hero. You can look to an exciting new commander. From the progression slash customization side, we want you to feel good about playing your commander and leveling up over time. And not only that, we want you to be able to play exactly how you want to play. So for the hero you just saw, which is Blockade, he is primarily a tank. He helps his allies a lot, so perhaps you can spec him more towards the healing side, more towards the defensive side, or maybe you're just like, you're full of pure aggression and you want to go all out. So
that
you can
one,
play
that one.
Exactly how you want to choose. Exactly, Rachel. Which one are you?
The pure aggression.
Oh, yes. I can see it in your eyes.
You know, here.
But also, in addition to that, we want you to, just play exactly how you want. And then finally is the team aspect. We want you to, it's a 3VE game mode rather than a 2VE game mode in StarCraft. So we want you to really feel like you're part of the team. We want to make cooperation feel good. We want to say, hey, I used my heal on my ally. Oh, I'm really appreciative of that heal, Rachel. Thank you.
I got you. I mean, I'm mad aggressive, but I'll still heal you.
Okay, you're that player. You're the DPS player. I got that. So maybe I can heal you instead.
I would appreciate that as well. But I love three. A three-legged stool never wobbles.
Yeah, exactly. And part of the thing we can do there is that by expanding to a 3VE mode, we allow it to bring even more friends in, and we can also split you in many different ways. You, as a team, you can choose, oh, all three of my teammates are going to go down that path, or you can choose to be lone wolves and go 1-1-1, complete the map in 3 separate lanes, perhaps, or you can go some combination of 2 and 1. The choice is really yours.
A lot of opportunities out there, and I know we have a big enough crowd that's going to explore all of them as soon as they can get their hands on it. Any last words you want to say about what's to come, what you're excited for, or who you're excited to see play?
Well, I think I'm most excited about our next guest, who not only is my current coworker, but he also worked with me a long time ago back on the Team Liquid days, back when we were just a couple of guys in a room.
Well, that's a great setup. So thank you so much, Monk, for coming out, for sharing your experiences, and of course, giving us a little taste of what's to come in 3VE. And you did do a wonderful job also of welcoming our next guest to the stage. This is Heyoka. We've got Matt Weber. He is the Senior Production Manager for Stormgate, bringing a lot of experience to bear, as Monk shouted out, as well as a lot of new thoughts from all the different places that you've been working in. Matt, it's a pleasure to have you here on the stage. Why don't you tell the people a little bit more about your background, your history in RTS?
Hello. Oh, wow. It's very exciting here. This is actually a little bit emotional for me. I worked for DreamHack for many years. I ran every StarCraft tournament DreamHack did between, 2017 and 2021. I was one of the people that founded the initial ESL Pro Tour, the RTS ones, and now I'm here with Stormgate on stage. I mean, it looks amazing. It's so nice to see this on stage.
It really does look good up here, and you're teeing me up nicely for a talk about future competitive Stormgate.
Yeah. I mean, for us, esports is really just all about facilitating cool stuff. I don't want us to be a group that is really setting a strict structure, dictating exactly what needs to happen, the formats, the tournaments. What I'd really like to do is to set up a structure by which people can plug in, try things, have different tournaments, see what works, see what's fun. For me, my background, like Kevin mentioned, is at Team Liquid. The thing that made me really fall in love with esports was the community aspect, just hanging out with people. I ran into Team Liquid in the mid-2000s, and I really felt like these are my people. These are the people I want to hang out with, and I'd like to facilitate that for everyone else. And that's kind of the way we're approaching esports, is something similar to that.
Yeah, I think Frost Giant's overall philosophy on Stormgate Esports is very interesting, and it speaks to your background in the grassroots scenes of what built these RTS games that we love, that what built StarCraft into a game that has weathered time is the deep, deep roots that we're allowed to set early on. So what are you guys doing for that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, first and foremost, we're looking to just make a really fun game. I actually spend most of my time on the production side. I produced our Kickstarter, I produced a lot of the UI, I do some production for monetization. But in parallel, we're planning for a future to have competition. And the general goal for us is, when a game is good, it tends to be fun to watch. We've been pretty happy with the results, which is why we're here. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised at how good the game was to watch, even in an early state. It's really, to the designer's credit. Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Oh, great. That was good.
I asked quietly, but
Yes,
they were
thank
quick
you.
to enthuse.
Yes, very
Thanks,
good.
guys.
But yeah, that's just sort of the goal, is we'd like something that's cool, something that's fun, and we want to be there to help make it happen. We want to empower people. I want to support people. I mean, I can't really even stop people from doing tournaments. As soon as we had a pre-alpha, people were doing competitions, and so I just want to let them have that love. I want to support that. I want to foster that. That's kind of our main goal. And for us, in addition to supporting people like TLO, Mana, and Moon, I'd really like you to be able to play with your coworkers, with your friends, with people you're at school with. I mean, when I was in college, we used to go to the bar, and then we would come home and play little tournaments among ourselves, and I really want to support that for this game.
Yeah, a wide and strong base is going to build for a very tall and incredible and long-lasting future. I do love that you're putting that effort into building that community, and players turn into viewers as well, and viewers love to watch competition at the highest level. So tell me, Hugo, what's going on with the top tier esports?
The top tier, well, for the next couple of months, you're going to see a little bit more play from our closed beta. We're going to let people stream some events, even though we're still in closed beta. Next year, we're going to go into early access. In the fall, then, we'd like to sanction some events, not so much first-party run, but work with the community to really make some cool stuff. And then at the very end of the year, we'd like to have the first real Stormgate Championship, a live event, have a real prize pool, and really just celebrate the first couple of months of the game.
That sounds incredible. It sounds like you've got a lot of future players, maybe a lot of current players if you've been over to the booth and been able to score a beta key, that are interested in following the growth of esports, that might want to do these beta tournaments. Are you collecting them somewhere? Do we send them somewhere? Do you have a personal email you want to hand out?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't even know what email to do, but I think if you look on our website, our press contact is probably the best place. They'll send us. I'm trying to talk to all the community members to make sure we know who wants to do things, but really reach out to us. We want to work with people, just help build a really cool community and let people do super fun things.
Well, thank you so much, Matt, for coming out to talk to us. I know the future of Stormgate Competitive is in great hands, so I'm going to let you go back and actually watch our next competition. We're going to get set up because we have the finals of our Stormgate Showdown about to go down here on stage. Incredible players. We've got Moon and Mana, who just took out TLO, and they are ready to put on the highest level Stormgate competition thus far. Let's check it out.
All right, everybody, let's make some noise. Let's get hype. It is Moon versus Mana here in the first ever Stormgate show match. Mana, in a way, representing StarCraft 1, StarCraft 2. He started playing and competing in StarCraft at a very young age. And of course, Moon, the greatest Warcraft 3 player of all time. These two duking it out now in a game that takes the best of StarCraft and the best of Warcraft, puts it together. Let's find out who comes out on top, Artosis.
It's going to be an exciting one here. You know, Mana, a legend from StarCraft 2, and Moon being the greatest of all time from Warcraft 3. Can't really ask for a better match than this. It's going to be Infernals against Infernals. That bottom left purple Infernal is Moon, and the top right is Mana.
This is going to be such a crazy match here. This map, a very different one. They are both going to be going for fast expanding builds. There are creeps on this map. Some are in the middle, some are a little bit further out of the way. It is a very winding map in that there's a lot of different ways to counterattack and move around. So having map presence and map vision is going to be key.
Yeah, and already we see maybe a little bit of a difference between the two players. 2 Iron Vaults going down there for Moon. You know, right now, as far as Infernal versus Infernal, Fiends are very, very strong. And Gaunts, with that Infest ability to make more Fiends, is very, very strong. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see just a lot of Fiends battling on both sides.
There's one function we haven't really discussed yet. We didn't really have time in the last series because the game picked up so fast, but there is Animus that is collected over time when units are killed, and that is only for Infernals, but in an Infernal versus Infernal match, you're both going to be getting Animus. It would seem like whoever can pick up the most more quickly is going to have a lot of positional advantages here to try to activate a lot of those abilities you can use with that.
Yeah, and if you have a lot of Fiends dying all game and turning into Fiends for your opponent and things like this, you're going to get a lot of Animus. We might see those Shroud Stones really come into play as a huge focal point of power.
And it is possible if you get enough Animus to unlock a Dragon, which is an extremely powerful unit. We'll see if that comes into play here, but just keep that in the back of your minds. If this game does drag out, I would imagine that is going to be an inevitability.
If it drags out, it will drag on.
We've got the first resource camp going down over here. Mana clearing that, and we see mirrored behavior over here from Moon. And so nobody, I think in a mirror matchup like this, is really incentivized to try to come out and hiccup and interrupt the creeping on the other side of the map, because otherwise you're not going to be creeping on your own.
You're going to be playing with very similar unit sets here as well. And in fact, look at that surround. That is Moon for you right there. Instantly surrounding that Brute. Gets it to split, and of course, you know, those Fiends are going to have to back up. They can't do anything against that army.
Yeah, and in a mirror matchup like this, that's pretty huge. We've got Mana all the way down, out of position here, so Moon able to generate some threats. Is he going to commit? It does seem like with the 3 Brutes and 2 Fiends, you do get a perfect surround to try to come in there and crush.
And look at this, the 3 Brutes really diving far right now. The 2 Brutes up Mana trying to chase him down, splits the hurt one off into some Fiends, and he's going to go ahead and chase that, but that means the 2 Brutes in the main base could deal some extra damage.
Yeah, he wants to basically go for a worker harass here. He's going to dive in, and of course these Fiends are so nimble, they could just come through here and hit these workers. That's going to force Mana to then change his Brutes into Fiends here.
Yeah, a lot of Brutes, a lot of Fiends fighting right now. You can see just battling all over the place and splitting into those Fiends when they need to. The Fellhogs being pretty useful as well as a defensive deterrent.
A really crazy game to start this off. It looks like a lot of these imps are taking damage. Some are even getting killed off over here. And, you know, Moon, he was known to have by far the best micro on Warcraft 3, and we're kind of seeing that on display here in Stormgate. He was a guy who would pick fights that many other Warcraft 3 pros would never dare go into, and oftentimes come out on top.
Yeah, but, you know, he is fighting over here on his opponent's Shroud, which means we get that additional white health for Mana's unit. So even though he's keeping a lot of pressure on, I feel like he's not really making that much progress with these attacks.
Looks like we've got 2 more Brutes coming up here now. More pressure building over here on Mana's base.
Yeah, the Brutes coming up and the Fiends being pushed back a little bit. That meat farm having to walk around it right now. A Shroud Stone going down. So he is looking for a little bit more static defense. We're going to see if that works out for him as Moon just rallying Brutes across the map non-stop here.
Artosis has got to be his game. You know that. I can't explain it. He's coming through and doing so much damage. I didn't expect any games to possibly be, snowballing this quickly, but Moon is doing so much damage here. It seems like like he's just able to eke out enough by, knowing exactly when to split his brutes into the two fiends, microing back perfectly. The pressure is really on here for Mana.
And denying those Shroud Stones is huge. They deal a lot of damage. They're great static defense, and you can start casting spells because we have a ton of Animus already in play here.
That's right. It's really building up because this game has been such a bloodbath. It looks like for the time being, Mana may be able to force us back. The question is, as more and more brutes come in, can Moon keep the pressure on?
Well, he's certainly trying to. The Fiend's getting cleaned up in that main base. Looks like he turns around for now. He has some very damaged brutes right there. And yeah, let's take a look at what else is going on this map. Do we have additional expansions? Do we have some additional tech? It really looks like it's mostly that production of the brutes and maybe a little bit of expanding going on as well there for Moon.
Yeah, this is looking pretty good for Moon with that base down there at 6 o'clock. Can we get a check over at the far center right? Is there actually a base over there?
Yeah, I think Mana is expanding to the right side of the map right now as well.
There we go. Okay, I wanted to confirm how much is there. Only 3 workers there mining for now.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit more there for Mana at 6 o'clock.
You'll have to build that up a little bit. You see he has put down the meat farm there to try to defend a little bit of Shroud Stone as well. That base is kind of far away from everything else, so I like the fact that he's putting down some static defense to just dissuade Moon from harassing that base with his Fiends.
Moon with some pretty good roaming is continuing to creep up on the map here, using these Fiends to basically stalk the brutes. Are we going to have another engage here? Moon with a very injured brute. It seems like Mana has a little bit more HP, even some white health there on top of those units. So Moon instead just going to continue to ignore this move to the south. He wants to try to get that, but a good move there by Moon. He actually gets his own Fiends out.
That's right. Very, very nice. And in fact, the Fiends, he's body blocking so well. You can see those Warcraft 3 World Championship skills for Moon there as he gets additional damage onto Mana's brutes, but eventually they do part ways.
That's right. Moon's going to loop around over here. He could hit this base. It seems to be fairly undefended. You know, brutes, as they move on the map, they're not that fast. So if you get out of position and your opponent is going to be hammering one of your bases, you can see with Fiends doing so much more damage, Moon is going to come in here and try to take this out as quickly as possible. He is targeting down the Shrine. Is he going to get it in time?
Oh my gosh, I think he is. That is some great killer instinct coming out of Moon. So the Shrine goes down. That's going to be one less base. Tries to get in with the Magmadon, actually stopping his Fiends, and only a few will escape. So he definitely traded a lot of units there. But to kill off a base of Mana, it feels like it was worth it.
I think it was definitely worth it. You got to remember that unless you're going to commit with Fiends of your own, which I guess he is, by the way, you don't have a lot of counterattacking opportunities. It's interesting, in an RTS game, you know, when do you want to target down a building and all in on that versus when you want to trade out in a fight? It's cool to see Moon in that moment. He decides, no, you want to go for the Shrine first.
Yeah, now, I find this kind of interesting. Tell me what you think, Tasteless, but the Magmadons coming out here for Mana's side, obviously they don't have a lot to do with Fiends. They do have that stun, which is nice, but when you're building them, you're not building brutes.
Right. And we're going to see what role that's going to play as eventually these two armies are going to collide. Mana in a game of catch-up here. I liked earlier on, we saw his Magmadon tear through the trees to try to get a nice pathway there from the main base to the third base. But this entire game, thematically, it's really been Moon on the offense. Mana's never really had a real opportunity to do any damage, to interfere in any way on Moon's side of the map. And, you know, it can be misleading when you see one player constantly defending and surviving attacks, where in reality, Moon is just outgrowing him in every possible conceivable metric.
It really does seem that way. And now he even has a lot of gaunts with his army, which means Moon is going to be able to go ahead and infest some of these units, which, of course, when they die, you're going to get more Fiends. And this is that kind of snowballing effect that we've been talking about. That's kind of what you're aiming for with these mass Fiend plays.
The game quiets down for a little bit here as we're seeing Moon really gather up a pretty insanely powerful army. He is going to be moving out. It looks like he's going to be tearing through the center of the map. There is going to be an expand over here. I don't think the Fiend is going to be able to deny that in time. Oh, in fact, it is. Meanwhile, it looks like we have an ambush over here. Is he going to try to plow into this? He is!
Oh, that's a lot of Magmadons right there. Fiends coming up to help out as well. The Brutes of Mana come from the north. and you can see some great micro right now. He's utilizing those gaunts up at the top of the battle, trying to get those additional kills, trying to get those additional fiends, and it looks like he's going to start to run Mana over, who has to retreat.
And you can see that the chain stunning there from the Magmadons is really working out very nicely. He's chasing him all the way back to where we saw the action start at the beginning of this game. The question now is he going to try to press it and do more damage? Looks like he's going to go for the shrine.
Yeah, he's coming up right now, trying to get something done here, splitting off into more and more fiends at the moment. This is just huge here from Moon.
It's a lot of pressure here from Mana, and I don't know that he can stop either this push over here at the front, but more importantly, all of these fiends taking out his workers back here.
This is a big problem. This shrine going to end up falling. Moon in complete control of this game. Yeah, and there you have it.
Incredible game there. Wow. That was something else, Artos. It's crazy to see, you know, what an action-packed game that was from start to finish. Well, we're going to be going into game 2 in a second here. It was interesting to see that map play out. You know, the fast expanding plays, the development, how everything went down. But we're going to be going into that next map in a second here. It is, I think, loser picks. Is that correct, Artos?
Yes, that is correct. So, yeah, Moon taking down that first game. And, well, we'll see what Mana has to try to come back.
Yeah. Now, Moon really hindered Mana early on. I think there were some moments where maybe Mana could have come back, but after getting crippled early on, we then saw Moon be very decisive. He saw that third base. He knew he could come in there and crush that. It seems like currently the way that this mirror matchup is operating, if you're able to dive in and really commit and do damage, it's hard to have a counterattack with the fact that brutes are so slow. And, of course, fiends are impermanent if they're not on their own shroud there. So really interesting to see the meta kind of develop.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more interesting things. It's like, okay, well, these are really fast. They're good at dealing damage. But when they're out on the other side of the map, there's a clock on them.
Right.
So if you make that hard decision to make your brutes into fiends, well, you got to make it work for you. And Moon definitely did that game.
So we're just waiting to go into game 2 right now. It is a best of 3, just to remind everybody. Fingers crossed that Mana can win one. I think it was an interesting close match there. It's just Moon knows how to accumulate that lead over time. But whoever comes out here on top and wins this either 2-0 from Moon or a comeback here from Mana 2-1 will be the first ever champion of Stormgate competitive match.
I know. That's a big one. It really is. And to see that beautiful trophy of a Vulcan. Okay, so we actually just got an update, guys. It turns out that they mislabeled the colors on the overlay there. And actually, that was Mana. Every time we said Moon, that was Mana. Every time we said Mana, that was Moon.
Oh, that makes sense, because we saw the GG first on one side. So everything that you saw back there, flip the player. So that was right. Mana that came in there with the pressure onto Moon, did the damage. That was Mana that came in, did the fiends, and hit the third base. So a little bit of a mistake there on our overlay. But once you understand, you just reverse the players. Now you know what happened. Okay, so this is crazy. Let's update this. Mana up 1-0.
That's right.
Yes.
Moon really having a bit of a hard time with Mana. It felt like Mana really had a great idea of what he was trying to do throughout that game. I do know he's played a little bit more than Moon, but, you know, Moon's still looking very strong.
Yeah, Moon looking very good back there. But, you know, just like we saw with Mana versus TLO, able to kind of lean onto the opponent. It seems like if you're able to kind of build that pressure and do that damage, it really does build up over time. So what would Moon want to do here for maps? We already saw some interesting games here with Jag and Maw, you know, with the catapult pushes and how that panned out. We do still have one more map remaining here. Let me check my notes. Is that...
Yeah, Titan's Causeway, I don't believe we played
That's
yet.
right, Titan's Causeway. That's an interesting map in that it's a little bit tricky to get a natural, I should say a second base, up and running more easily because it's such a wide area to defend. But so far in the 3 games of Stormgate that we've had here today, it's been a lot of fast expand plays.
Yeah, that does seem to be the case. You know, it feels like early rushes, it's a little bit hard to really make them pay off enough compared to getting that expansion up, getting a slightly stronger army, and then going across for an attack.
All right, well, we're still waiting to see what game or what map, excuse me, it's going to be. It is packed down here at DreamHack. What's up, everybody? It's so exciting to be part of a new RTS developed and supported here by the OGs. You know, RTS, it's a genre that really ages like a fine wine. The more we know about it, the more we learn, the more there is that you can do. And we're ready now to go into game 2 here. Right now, Mana up 1-0.
All right. So this game, making extra sure that we have this on the right side. The purple player in the bottom left, that's going to be Moon. Nope, that's going to be Mana.
That's going to be Mana. All right. We're safe. It's good we're getting this sorted out at the start.
You know, I'm always saying that's the hardest thing about RTS is having that overlay correct.
And in the top right, over here, hoping to win this and come back 2-0 here for all the Warcraft 3 fans out there, it is Moon. Okay. So, we had fast expands in Game 1 in the first mirror matchup ever in Stormgate in this show match. We're going to have the same thing again going here into Game 2.
Yeah, these very fast expansions. No real way to harass it too much. You know, we saw in the previous match against TLO, because the Vanguards start with a scout unit, they can go across the map, they can deal some damage.
Right.
Here, that's not the same case with the Infernal, right? So you can just kind of expand right away, get into your production facilities afterwards, and just macro up really heavily.
One of my favorite things about learning an RTS is seeing where the top players who are really steering our knowledge of the game, where they place the first few buildings. It seems like in the bottom left here, we've got Mana, just like he did in Game 1, with somewhat of a wall. He's creating more of a bottleneck entry point here. When we look at Moon and where his structures are, it does seem to be a little bit more spaced out.
Yeah, it does. I do wonder kind of like why he's doing that, what his thought process is for those buildings. It feels like Mana's might be a little bit better for blocking things, but they're doing basically the same thing here, right? They're going ahead and getting 3 Iron Vaults each after that fast expansion. A lot of Brutes going to come out. Maybe you can go ahead and, clear some of those small creep camps and then start the attack and get those Fiends out there. See if you can deal some damage and slow your opponent down.
So whenever I see a mirror matchup, I'm always looking for where the deviation in the builds are. Sometimes you'll see both players behaving in the exact same way, but where is that fork in the road going to be? And will it start with the creeping or will it start with the tech?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. Now, 3 Brutes coming out from the side of Moon. Looks like he wants to go ahead, clear some of the camps here. And this is Secluded Grove, by the way. I'm not sure if we were talking about that too much earlier. Obviously, the last game had a lot of action, a lot of attacking nonstop there from Mana. But I wonder if this map could slow it down a little bit. Those central bases are so strong.
Absolutely. We got the Brutes now roaming. Nobody committing to the other side of the map just yet. And it looks like Moon going to go here for the health camp. Now, when you kill this, you then are able to start to regen health. You have to occupy this area for now in order to get that full effect of the region. It doesn't carry on with you. And we have, I believe that's an Imp headed up here, northbound.
Yeah, it looks like we're probably going to get another expansion going down here for Mana, really focusing on getting those bases up as quickly as possible. Wouldn't be surprised if we see something similar from Moon as well.
Now, we've got the first attack coming in up here. Some real pressure over here onto Moon's Shrine. Is there going to be any way to defend? Where's the rest of his armies? Beautiful surround over there. Really nicely done by Mana. Oh my God, this is kind of a base trade situation, Artosis. They're both just going to be going at each other.
Yeah, it does look that way. Now, we have a lot of Imps coming down to try to help to hold this on. In the meantime, this counterattack from Moon coming in. It's a little bit later, so it feels like Mana has the advantage.
Yeah, well, he's certainly going to have, the lead as far as the damage coming out, and that means that you're going to be able to deny the workers from mining earlier, which means you can slow them down. There's no way to warp back at home right now here for Moon, so, this could spiral out of control, but let's find out.
Well, it's a real possibility. He is eventually getting rid of these Brutes. You can see that Moon is actually doing a reasonable job over here as well. He will micro back a little bit, a couple more Brutes coming out, and of course with those Fiends, there's no real chance for his Brutes to do much more.
Yeah, the Fiend's now going to try to come in here from Mana just to try to slow down any mining here from Moon. We've got the Hellhawks coming out here, but they're not going to last that long.
Yeah, definitely helpful as far as defense goes, adding into that defender's advantage that's so important in RTS games. But at the end of the day, it feels like both sides end up holding reasonably well.
The third base is being taken here, as we're seeing Mana, as far as growth goes, shoot up to the north on his side of the map. We need to see how Moon can possibly try to come back and balance this out. And look at the denial here. Great instinct. He's going to get the imp, but more importantly, deny the third base. And, if you're getting that many more resources over time from that third base, it's undeniable that there's not a lot that Moon's going to be able to do to recover that. So Mana with some really good control play, but look at this counterattack here from Moon.
Oh, man. Very, very nice. We dropped down to just 5 workers on the Luminite in that base for Mana. So a little bit of a problem. Definitely needs to get more imps out to get that economy back online.
So the Vision Camp now going to be hit over here by Moon. Just doing whatever he can on that side of the map to, stay active. And when you're denying that vision, it's going to make things more ambiguous there from the perspective, of Mana.
Yeah, he's going to come back and try to battle against that as well here, taking as much damage against him as he can here, but the Fiend's going to get surrounded as well. So you do see some of these small skirmishes where Moon's micro is paying off.
It really is a balancing act here for Infernal of when do you want to commit to an area, give the Brute up, to have the Fiend there temporarily do more damage, control an area, versus hanging on to the Brutes for a longer period of time and then using that to have more explosive power at a moment that might swing the game.
Yeah, and one thing I find interesting as well is the expansion timing, right? We've seen Moon trying a couple times but getting denied because Mana is keeping so much aggression on. But Mana's actually the one that's been expanding a little bit quicker.
Yeah, and with the third base coming down now for Moon, this seems like a really ample opportunity here for Mana to come in. He's got his Brutes, he's got his Gaunts. We've got Moon coming up here to try to meet and defend this. There's no Shroud here, so there's no defender's advantage. Mana going to fraction some of those Fiends off to try to body block these Brutes.
Oh, look at that. He's trying to back up with the Brutes. Let's see if he actually has enough here. I think the Gaunts making a huge difference. Oh, man, a gigantic Infest does end up going down there, but it feels like Moon doesn't have enough units.
Yeah, he's zoned out, and now he's going to start to lose this position. We're going to see the farm go down. And look, with no third base in the picture, what exactly can Moon do? Now, the Theorem mining area here, he can come in here and deny that. He doesn't have to commit in here if he doesn't want to, but he's buying more and more of a lead.
And with that third base up and mining, this feels like it's going to be really hard for Moon to come back. He's playing with basically the same units. Comes forward right now. His Shroud Stone taking huge amounts of damage. The Shroud Stone will be picked off, so less static D available for Moon at his base.
Yeah, Moon really in a lot of trouble here. The question is Mana perhaps overcommitting? That's one way that Moon can end up coming back into this. It seems like he's doing a pretty decent job, but as more Fiends come in here and begin to hit these Brutes, we're going to see Moon wrap back around. If Moon can't do much more over here, and in fact, with this Infest, this is looking really bad right now for Moon.
Yeah, the Gaunts adding a lot in here as well. Looks like a meat farm might end up falling here. Continues to attack forward, and look at that macro coming out. Just a huge amount of imps coming from Moon up trying to help this base out.
Yeah, and with these imps can't mine, there's just not a whole lot else that can be done. We have another Infest coming down here right now. The worker's going to be pulled away once more. It looks like what was once a walling that would have helped to defend is now boxing these units in. They can't get out.
Yeah, he does get a Magma Dawn out, a stronger, more sturdy unit capable of stunning everything, but doesn't feel like that's enough. He needs more damage output here against the masked Fiends that Mana has sent to him.
Yeah, and now this is becoming a bit of an execution over here, trying to get these workers somewhere safe as these Fiends just come in here and chase them down. The Shrine, the Greater Shrine is about to be taken out. It's so low, sub 100 HP, and it will go down.
Mana getting a smile on his face. He knows this game is all but over right now. Moon struggling, trying to come back, but the Gaunts are looking really strong. Those ranged attacks, hard to really micro against here for Moon with less units.
And we're seeing Mana's units spill into the main. The only thing that remains now is the infrastructure, the source that's producing these Magmadons, these Brutes, and it looks like they're going to be falling as well.
Yeah, down goes that Magmadon. We have more and more Fiends continuing to join the battle onto Mana's side. And now the last imps are going to have to fight here as well. Mana seconds from victory. There it is. GG.
Mana going undefeated. Make some noise. He is the Stormgate victor here in the first ever show match at DreamHack Atlanta. Really incredible stuff, Artosis.
Yeah, Mana is such a great legendary gamer. Great results at DreamHack in the past for him, and here at the Stormgate Showdown, he is the champion.
Really cool to see what he was able to pull off here. Able to keep the pressure on his opponent, continue to grow, continue to develop, and then make the comeback an impossibility. We're going to throw it over to the stage now with Rachel to see how Mana's feeling.
Thank you so much. Mana is feeling like a wonderful and honorable competitor because he ran over to give Moon a handshake right before we hopped into this interview. But now,
hello.
Hello. Mana, welcome. Congratulations, the very first champion of the on-stage major esport that is to be Stormgate. So tell me, how does it feel?
Amazing feeling, actually. I remember starting my career in StarCraft 2 beta. I enjoyed all the show matches. I always wanted to be like part of like the battle report that we had for StarCraft 2. So now, for the first time, to be in the stage for Stormgate, to make history here as a player, and also not only just be part of it, but actually win it all. It's an amazing feeling for sure.
Congratulations, Mana. It is well earned. You talked about your history in StarCraft before this. Tell me how that led to you getting involved into Stormgate at such an early stage.
It definitely helps a lot to get like a lot of multitasking from StarCraft 2. It feels very similar, the way that the game plays out. Yeah, I could feel that I was kind of like out multitasking Moon here and there, so it felt quite nice. So it feels to be like a relatively even game here compared to StarCraft 2. And yeah, like the way that we started it off, like the first closed alpha test, then the beta test and so on, like the game is progressing in such a nice state, and it feels like an actual RTS is on the horizon.
Well, and for you to stand here as our champion, you talked about making history, and now at such a high mark, how are you going to top this? You plan on sticking with Stormgate? What's your future look like?
Well, it depends, of course. Like, I'll try to play StarCraft 2 and Stormgate at the same time. We will see how the future looks like for the Stormgate tournaments. I will definitely be actively playing the game, testing it, and trying to make it the best game possible. So far, I do enjoy it, but I'll obviously still compete in StarCraft 2.
Well, Mana, it is so exciting to be able to do this, but I would like to invite you now to place down your microphone and hoist for the first time.
Let's go.
The very first Stormgate trophy. Big congratulations and much respect to Mana and of course Moon and TLO, who came out and showed us an incredible range on Stormgate, and the game is just getting started. Thank you also to our developers who came out and shared their perspective, their insight. It's been a real treat to get a closer look at Stormgate, and it's been a real treat, Mana, to crown you the champion. So for now, thank you for watching. Stick around for more Stormgate news on their socials, and we'll see you later from DreamHack.